Shalom and a warm welcome to the Middle East Report. In this program today, we'll be discussing the amazing work being done by Israel's National Emergency Service known as Magen Adom and how they are saving lives in Israel. And this is their vision for 2025. And my guests today are Joanne Abrams, who's the Chief Fundraiser for Magen Adom UK, together with Daniel Berger, the Chief Executive of MDAUK. So both of you, warm welcome to the Middle East Report.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. And Daniel, it's great to have you back. And can I personally say what a wonderful job you do in leading this amazing organisation, which is Magen Adom UK, saving lives in Israel. And during the past year, and recovering from the horrors of October the 7th, your organisation has really stepped up and made a massive difference, not only to the lives of Israelis, but you've also been advocating for Israel in such an amazing and powerful way. And Hebrew, kol hakavod to you and all that work for MDA UK.
Well, firstly, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here. And it's lovely to take the credit, but as you say, it's my team. And it's an honour and a privilege to be able to represent the amazing people that are Magen Adom in Israel, the life-saving heroes.
Absolutely. So firstly, Daniel, and also to Joanne, Happy New Year to you both and to your families. But Daniel, do you want to share with us really, for our viewers who may not have come across Magen Adom, and if they've been watching this programme long enough, they certainly will, but share with us the incredible life-saving work that MDA do in Israel.
Of course, I mean, you summed it up, life-saving work. MDA splits into three strands. It's the National Medical Emergency Service of Israel. So ambulances, medicycles, first responders, volunteers, and paid paramedics. That's its core. That's what most people think about when they think of Magen Adom. Then it's the blood services of Israel. 98% of Israel's blood population, 100% of the IDF's blood is supplied and processed by Magen Adom. And now in its most state-of-the-art, probably the world's most advanced underground blood centre, which opened, ironically, on the 9th of October. And thirdly, and the bit that I'm proud of, but is also, of course, so contentious, is the Red Cross. Magen Adom is Israel's National Red Cross Society. Magen Adom translates to Red Star of David.
Or the Shield of David as well, then.
You're right, or Shield of David.
Absolutely. And Joe, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the Middle East Report. You're making your debut here, and I'm very grateful for Daniel for bringing you along to keep us all company. But do you want to share with us your Jewish story of growing up and working in the Jewish community? I know that you worked for almost 15 years at the Jewish Chronicle in sales and advertising.
I did. I started my career at the Jewish Chronicle, so I had a lot of exposure. Being Jewish myself, obviously I grew up being Jewish, but working there and being on the other side, the press side, was a real eye-opener for me. And I worked there for 15 years, and mainly in the display advertising department. So, but it was a very close team, so I was quite involved with hearing a lot of the stories, the editorial, so I had many years there in exposure.
Excellent. I have worked with the JC. They are a good newspaper. I've been able to give them a few news stories now and again. They even did a story about a decade ago on this programme, the Middle East Report, so I was grateful for that. But also share with us how Daniel has roped you in to help him out to be his chief fundraiser for Magen Adom UK.
It's almost gone full circle as well, because it's really lovely. Obviously, I knew it working at the Jewish Chronicle, but Daniel was still very much involved with working with the Jewish Chronicle. So I have gone full circle. So I was in the commercial world of recruitment, and then unfortunately, due to a loss in my family earlier last year, I decided that I wanted to do something. I wanted to work, but I wanted to do something very worthwhile and something that made a difference. So Daniel and I have known each other we were just trying to work it out actually before we came on air, I think 25 to 30 years.
That makes us sound old, doesn't it?
It does make us sound old. In a social setting, and we know a lot of the same people, we have mutual friends. So I approached Daniel and said, this is where I am, this is where I want to be. I want to use my transferable skills, being in sales and recruitment, and now actually do it for MDA. And Daniel probably thought about it and decided, I think Joe could be a great asset to the team. So here I am.
Wonderful, and you're making your debut on the Middle East Report as well. Even
yes,
better.
I am. Thank you.
And Daniel, before we talk about the incredible work of MDA, and particularly noticing that last year, 2024, was such a significant year because it was the 75th anniversary of the founding of Magen Adom. But share with us firstly your experience of dealing with this unprecedented rise of Jew hatred in this country. That first we have to address this. How are you feeling in light of this, and how is your family feeling about the rise of Jew hatred that we're seeing today?
You know, it's a really tough question because, of course, Jew hatred, anti-Semitism is there, and we talk about the pro-Pali, I would almost call the nut jobs, the paid protesters, the ones chanting from the river to the sea, but not actually really knowing what river, what sea, and what they're actually calling for. Overall, I haven't seen a lot. Personally, I haven't been affected by any anti-Semitism. I haven't been affected by the Jew hatred. Of course, we receive huge amounts of memes and comments on social media that are utterly disgusting. Some have had to be reported to the police and been dealt with, but personally, as an individual, I haven't seen it. It's really tough because it's this paradox of it is there, yet when I look around and talk to peers and friends in other countries, we still live in one of the most liberal countries, particularly in Europe, when we look about what's going on in France and in Hungary and other places. And so, on a personal level, I haven't seen it, but it's definitely out there. And when we see these comments, particularly against life-saving work of Magen Adom, I find it absolutely deplorable.
And Joe, sadly, ever since October the 7th back in 2023, we've seen an unprecedented rise in Jew hatred. And not only was this the biggest massacre in Israel's modern history, but it was also the largest number of Jewish people who have murdered since the Holocaust. Share with us how you and your lovely family are dealing with this horrible rise of Jew hatred in this country.
Well, it's very difficult when you've got young children. I've got a teenage daughter who is very aware. You know, you can't shield them from it. We also, where I personally live, is quite a large Jewish community. So school security is being ramped up a lot, especially since October 7th. And we have a vigil in where we live every Friday for the hostages. And we have the yellow ribbons tied on railings, and they've all been, quite often they've been pulled down. So my kids have seen that, and posters ripped off, you know, and it might seem like small things to people, but when children are seeing that and they're asking me why people doing this, because they are in a community where there are lots of Jewish people, and not only Jewish people, but people that love Jewish people and support Israel. And then something like that happens, it's small, but it's very big to children. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Daniel, very briefly, just share with our viewers how important it is for our Christian viewers watching this programme today to reach out to our Jewish brothers and sisters to make them feel that they're not alone during this difficult time.
I think summing up, to know we're not alone is amazing. It's something that's just so beautiful, because when things like this happen and when disasters happen and the public are vilifying Israel, and then that line muddies between anti-Semitism and anti-Israel, to know that our Christian supporters are out there and our friends are there and love us, both Jews and Israel, it means so much. And it's just something we're so eternally grateful for.
And Daniel, you had a very big year last year, as I mentioned earlier, the 75th anniversary since the establishment of Magen Adom in Israel, Israel's national emergency service. Share with us what a year 2024 was like for you and the work of MDA UK.
Yeah, and actually I'm going to correct you. It was Magen Adom in the UK that was 75. Yeah, this MDA in Israel was established in 1930, 18 years before the State of Israel. So that's how long it's been going. And that just shows the importance of the organisation and how people in Israel love the organisation.
And Joe, just share with us how your reflection as you are new to the work of MDA UK, just share with us your thoughts and reflections on the work that's being done through this organisation that you work for.
Well, let me just start by saying, since I've started working at MDA, the amount of people, when they say, where have you moved to, where are you working? And I tell them, the reactions I get is huge. Like, that's amazing. What an amazing organisation you're working for. So I just want to say that as well. It's just everything from seeing, you know, I was lucky enough to attend a dinner we did, a gala dinner, and just seeing everybody there, the enthusiasm, the support, everything that everyone believes. You know, fortunately, they had, because of the circumstances, we had Nova survivors that were there too. And everybody just wants a piece of MDA and what we are doing for Israel.
Wonderful. And Daniel, you were in Israel last November with the famous TV personality Rob Rinder, filming interviews with some of the remarkable men and women of MDA, sharing their stories of the horrors that happened on October, and they really are true heroes. So share with us what it was like to be in Israel with Rob Rinder and to interview these remarkable men and women that serve MDA.
Yeah, this was my first trip to Israel since the 7th of October. And we talked, and I heard a lot at that time about a different Israel. Israel's a new place, and this is that sort of statement that's thrown around. And I understood what people meant, but I didn't really understand it. And I remember taking that awful night flight and getting off the plane at 5 in the morning. And that was the first time I understood it, because we walked down that ramp to passport control, and I was surrounded by, at the time, 240 faces looking up at me, 240 posters of the hostages. And there, as I walked down that long ramp, I realized this is a very different Israel. And interspersed between these 240 faces were the signs saying, "This way to the shelter." So the two very real parts of what was happening immediately in the aftermath of 7/10 was there before I'd even gone 500 meters from the plane. And so then being in Sderot and in the south was something I'll never forget, because we met some remarkable heroes. We met, and the volunteers, met people who put their lives on the line to save others. And I remember talking to one dispatcher, Adi, and Adi was telling me, based in Ashdod in the situation room there, that she was in the call center and she took a call in. And if you remember the police station and the massacre and the murders going on in the Sderot police station, she had to dispatch ambulances to treat terrorists. And she's saying, it's not fair, it's not right, but this is our job and this is what we do. And I was just struck by the bravery and also the admiration for non-discrimination, and a life is a life that needs saving.
Absolutely. So we have a wonderful video that's produced by MDA UK that tells the story of one of the dispatchers of MDA on that horrific day known as October the 7th.
My name is Ronit Glazer. I live in Jerusalem. I am a dispatcher in Magen Adom, and I'm also an EMT, a medic. In the morning of October 7th, my girls and I were asleep at home, and all of a sudden, a bit before 8 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from a friend saying, "How are you still asleep? The country is on fire." I received a WhatsApp on my phone in the dispatch group from my boss saying, "Everyone come in now." On the way to the station, there were 3 red alert sirens. Each red alert siren, we had to stop on the side of the road, my girls lying face down on the ground, me lying on top of them with my hands on their heads. We went to the dispatch center, which is 3 floors underground. It's inside a bomb shelter. People stopped me saying, "Be prepared, this is nothing you've ever dealt with before." We can receive calls from the whole country, no matter where we're sitting. On the morning of October 7th, you could scroll down to see many, many, many red lines, which means intensive care unit, and blue lines, which means urgent call, still waiting, hundreds of flags all around the western area Negev. And then I started answering phone calls. The second phone call I answered was, "Hi Ronit, it's Amit from Barry. What's up? When will you be here?" I'm still in the dental clinic. I have gunshot victims in different severities, and I don't remember if she said 1 or 2 people who are dead here also from being shot. So I asked her to look outside the window if she can to tell me what she sees, and she said she only sees terrorists and a lot of shooting. And I asked her, "Do you see any civilians?" She said, "Yeah, but they're all lying dead." And I turned to Amit and I said, "Amit, I am so sorry. I don't know when we'll be there. You're in the middle of a war zone. We're trying our hardest, but so far no one has managed to get there." And she said, "I understand, thank you," and hung up. Amit treated patients here for almost 8 hours. on October 7th. She was going through complete hell. All of her medical supplies are all over the place here, thrown around, trying to get whatever she can to continue treating her patients while she's in this impossible situation. This was the first time ever that I could not say the ambulance is on its way, and I also couldn't lie to the people on the other side of the line. I took hundreds of calls, and there were 2 calls that stuck with me were with Amit Man. Something about her composure, something about her positive attitude the whole time. We had her in there, so we had Magen David Adom in Be'eri, but we couldn't send anyone in because the terrorists were just at the gate, taking out anyone and everyone, special forces, whoever arrived there. Amit Man was the youngest paramedic trainer in Magen David Adom. She was 22 years old when she was killed.
She was a Magen David Adom paramedic, the Israeli Red Cross, in uniform. But that didn't stop these savages.
She was found right over here with the medical gloves still on her hands, because that's the kind of person she was. Until her very last second, she treated her patients any way she possibly could, even after being shot in the leg. She still did everything she could with the medical gloves on in order to treat them, and they murdered her. Amit was also a singer. She was a very, very talented singer, and she always recorded herself singing. And there's a song that she sang that afterwards one of the famous Israeli bands did a recording together with her recording of her singing that says, "Nothing will ever hurt me."
שום דבר לא יפגע בי, שום דבר. לא אישה, לא כדור מחבלים, שום דבר.
Amit Man is the embodiment of Magen David Adom and also of a lot of Israelis on October 7th. So many people on that day did whatever they possibly could to help. And Amit, in such a special way, she ran towards danger, understanding that she's running towards danger, completely selflessly going in order to treat patients, just like so many Magen David Adom people did. The first and foremost is that MDAUK always says that our job is saving lives. I understood on October 7th I couldn't save so many. I am here to help. I help lives. And that's one very, very big switch that I've made in my head ever since then. I'm here to help.
שום דבר לא יפגע בי, שום דבר. לא אישה, לא כדור מחבלים, שום דבר.
Sadly, this is a narrative that doesn't get told very much, and these are the true brave heroes that saved lives on that horrific day back on the 7th of October 2023. Daniel, that was a remarkable video that we showed there, and thank you for producing it. But share with us really how so many of the MDA volunteers put their life on the line on October the 7th to actually save lives, knowing that this was the biggest mass terrorist attack that Israel has ever experienced in history.
Yeah, I mean, to represent an organization where one is told if there's a terror attack not to go to the scene, not to do that, because they're not armed on the whole, they're not the police, they're not the IDF, they're not supposed to go save lives until the area is safe. That's what they're always told in a hot zone, in a terror zone. And so 710 was clearly very, very different. And to be able to go in and say, we're going to save lives no matter what. Amit Man in that video is the epitome of everything that is Magen David Adom, and is so beautiful. 22 years old, the youngest ever paramedic trainer, murdered in the line of duty. Can you imagine, if we think back, she had time to apply a tourniquet to her leg after she'd been shot, and she carried on saving lives. And when they found her, she was found with her gloves on, bullet through the head, murdered in her Red Cross uniform. Murdered in her uniform, saving lives.
Which is a war crime.
It is a war crime, absolutely.
But also share with us also how on that horrific day on October the 7th that MDA was actually targeted by Hamas. And I've seen the videos, I've seen Israeli MDA ambulances shot to bits with those in died, and so many were murdered on that day by Hamas, which sadly gets lost when it comes to Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza and the immediate impact of what happened after October the 7th.
Yeah, so one of the Hamas commandos who was shot dead was found with orders on him, and they were translated from Arabic with a map, and he was part of a unit that was there dispatched to take out the MDA station in Sderot. So you'd interviewed Ophir in the past, and Ophir has told his story, and that station was absolutely key. It's a large station in a relatively large town on the border, and just like they did with the police station, they wanted to destroy it, to kill everyone. Thank goodness they didn't get that opportunity, and that is what we're dealing with. And that, coupled with the MDA ambulances being destroyed, set alight, tyres slashed, with the mentality being, if the lifesavers can't get to the victims won't be saved.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. And Joe, you were there for the big MDA dinner, and thank you so much for inviting me, Daniel, to attend that in early December, which was a very special evening. Just share with us your thoughts on how the horrors of October the 7th have reignited a passion for Zionism, for Israel advocacy, and of course the incredible work being carried out by MDA UK to save lives in Israel.
I just think that it's definitely highlighted the incredible work that MDA has done. And unfortunately, it's taken a horror like October the 7th for people that may not have thought, you know, Magen Adom is known by many people, but I think we are definitely in the forefront of people's minds now when it comes to who am I going to raise money for, who do I want to, everything from small events people are doing, which is part of why I've been brought in, small events that might raise £1,000, and people say I'm only raising £1,000. I'm like, no, you're not only. £1,000 is incredible. £10 is incredible. So I think a lot of people are doing challenges, sporting events. So I think we're definitely, unfortunately, what is a horror has actually meant that we are there in people's minds.
Wonderful. And Daniel, share with us how, because of the bad PR that Israel's received ever since October the 7th, anyone would think that Israel's the aggressor rather than the victim, and Israel's clearly the victim because what Israel experienced on October the 7th was a massacre, was a war crime, and we need to constantly remind not only our governments but also our elected officials and our media this constantly. But share with us how, as an organisation, you have been able to not only raise Israel's profile but also to advocate on Israel, which is a light in a very dark region of the world in the Middle East.
And a very difficult role to play. Of course, traditionally, we're here to fundraise and ask for money, and we've been, thankfully, very successful in that, and that's making a massive impact. But the PR advocacy and diplomacy role is something we've been doing for a number of years, but 710 just put that on steroids at how much we're doing. And so we can represent the Red Cross. We can be apolitical. So you'll never see us comment on government or what's going on, whatever our thoughts are. And we say to people, you might hate Israel. You might be apathetic towards Israel or ambivalent. But let me tell you a story about a life-saving organization with people that put their lives on the line day in, day out, 24/7. And that organization has 3 letters, MDA. And we do everything we can. And we want to make sure, and we lobby government, and we've been in Parliament this week, that people don't forget. And the hostages, the murdered, the massacred, and the war crimes that have happened over there are not forgotten by the British people and people around the world.
And share with us, Daniel, the excellent work you've been doing by bringing over Dani, who is the father of Omri, and we've got a short interview to show you in a minute, over to tell his story and to tell the story of the hostages that are still being held in the most horrific circumstances by Hamas in Gaza, and they have not been seen by the Red Cross. No one knows what the state they're in, but we have to keep this narrative alive. We have to keep their story alive. Share with us how, as an organisation, you've been able to position yourself where you've even been able to raise awareness of the plight of hostages as well.
It's something that's so important. And even personally, I know it sounds crazy, I feel morally obligated to do what I can, my duty to help, because we have this ability. And we talk about Omri and the other 99 that are held hostage at the moment. Now, my father's the same age as Dani. We're pretty much the same age as Omri. I couldn't imagine being in that position. And as parents, knowing that Dani and Omri have a family, a young family, back at home waiting for Omri's release, it is horrific. And what I find so hard to swallow more than anything is people forget. People lose interest. People don't want to hear, to go into Parliament and to have some MPs and some staffers turn up. It should be all. This should be something that is shouted from the rooftops of the Commons and the Lords, not from one committee room.
So let's have a look now at this very moving and inspirational interview I did earlier with Dani, who is the father of Omri, who is still being held captive against his will by Hamas. And Hamas terrorists actually took his car keys, drove him and another man into Gaza, into that hellhole. And so we are praying for his release and praying that no harm comes to him. Have a look at Dani telling us about the situation that his son faces. We're now joined by Dani Miran, who is the father of Omri Miran, who was one of the Israeli hostages that was taken captive by Hamas back on that evil day known as October the 7th. And this is a short interview with his father, and we have Annette Klein who will be translating. So both of you, thank you so much for being here. And firstly, can I say on behalf of myself, Revelation TV, and our wonderful viewers, how much we love Israel, how much we love the Jewish people, and our heart has been breaking ever since October the 7th. And every day we've been praying for the return of the hostages, and we pray for the return of your precious son, Omri.
Thank you very much.
Dani, before we talk about Omri, your son, who was taken in the most horrific circumstances, kidnapped and taken back to Gaza by Hamas on October the 7th. Do you want to share a little bit about your Israeli background? You were born in Iraq, you made Aliyah to Israel in 1951. Share with us your Israeli life and your Israeli story.
אני יליד עיראק, יליד שנת 45. אם נחשוב על זה שנולדתי ביוני, אני עוד חצי שנה בן 80. ואת עיקר חיי חייתי בישראל. את העיצוב שלי ואת החינוך שלי קיבלתי בישראל. ויש לי 4 ילדים. גדלתי בעיירת פיתוח. לפני כן גדלתי במעברה בכלל. מי שלא יודע מה זה מעברה, זה פשוט אוהלים או צריפים שגרנו בהם מספר שנים עד שבנו את הבתים. ועברנו לבתים. וזהו.
So, my name is Dani Miran. I was born in 1945, so June, and this year I will be 80 years old. And I, most of my life, live in Israel. So Israel make my personality and my life is majority life in Israel. And I live in a very small town. And before I came, we stayed in a tent. And now, before 7th of October, I lived in Yesod HaMa'ala.
Amazing. So, Dani, tell us about your son, Omri. Tell us about his character, his attributes, and what is he like as a man?
עומרי נולד בכפר, ביסוד המעלה, במושבה. הוא ילד של טבע. הוא עד גיל 5 הלך יחף, בקוצים. גם שלחתי לעבוד במטעים, הוא בא יחף. והוא ילד שובב. עשה הרבה מעשי קונדס בצעירותו. אחר כך הוא התגייס לצבא.
And so Omri was born in Yesod HaMa'ala, the village up north. He was till the age of 5. He's a natural boy. He liked the natural. He liked to go to the fields and being outside. He really loved nature. And then he went to the army.
וכשהוא סיים את הצבא, הוא טייל מעל שנה בהודו. נהנה מאוד מהודו, מהשבטים, מהנופים. חזר לארץ, הלך ללמוד שיאצו. וכשסיים ללמוד שיאצו, עבד קצת במקצוע. ואחר כך הלך ללמוד באוניברסיטה. וסיים תואר בניהול מחלקות בתי חולים.
So Omri went to the army, and after the army went to India for his trip after the army. And then he get back home, study shiatsu. And after he finished shiatsu, he worked a little bit and then went to the university and study health industry and finished his degree.
Excellent. And where were you, Dani, on October the 7th? And when did you become aware of the horrors that were happening in the south of Israel, and particularly what happened to your son, Omri, and his beautiful family?
אני ב7 לאוקטובר הייתי ביסוד המעלה, ועומרי היה בנחל עוז. המרחק מיסוד המעלה לנחל עוז זה 5 שעות נסיעה, אבל המרחק מנחל עוז לגבול זה 700 מטר. אני הייתי ביסוד המעלה.
So, on the 7th of October, I've been in Yesod HaMa'ala, the village up north. So, Yesod HaMa'ala to Nachal Oz, where is Omri live. So it's 5 hours distance. And Nachal Oz, the kibbutz, and the border of Gaza, it's 700 meters. It's like between 7 to 10 minutes by walk.
And tell us what happened to Dani and his family, because weren't they hiding in what is known as a kind of safe rooms because of those kibbutzes? They have to have safe rooms because all the rockets and missiles that Hamas fire over at those kibbutz. So share with us the situation that Dani found himself and his family, Omri found himself in back on October the 7th.
הוא היה בממ"ד, הוא הכניס את המשפחה לממ"ד, אני טלפנתי אליו לשאול אותו מה קורה. סיפר לי שהקיבוץ מלא מחבלים. הוא הכניס לי שי והבנות לממ"ד, היות ולא היה לו נשק. הוא יצא למטבח, לקחת 2 סכינים, שיהיה לו משהו בידיים.
So on October 7th, Dani called to Omri, and Omri said all of the kibbutz full of terrorists, Hamas terrorists, and he just put Lishai, his wife, and his 2 daughters, Roni and Alma, to the shelter, to the mamad. And because he didn't have any weapon, he just went to the kitchen and take 2 knife kitchens to protect them and got back to the shelter, to the safe room.
ושם הוא ביקש ממני לא לטלפן אליו, כי הם רוצים להיות בשקט, שאני אכתוב לו והוא יענה לי.
And he asked Dani, please don't call us because it's really dangerous. Just text me, and they start to text each other.
וככה כתבתי לו כל 20 דקות, משהו כזה. ובשעה 11 כתבתי לו מה קורה, ולא קיבלתי תשובה. כתבתי לו שוב, עומרי, אני מודאג, תענה לי בבקשה, ולא קיבלתי תשובה.
So they text each other till 11 o'clock, and in 11 o'clock, Dani wrote to Omri a text message, and he didn't answer. And he asked what's happened again, and he didn't answer.
ואז הבנתי, אחרי שראיתי את הסרטים בבוקר בטלוויזיה שחמאס פרסם, שהם הורגים כל דבר, נשים, גברים, ילדים, כלבים, הבנתי שהרגו את כולם. שבעצם אין לי ילד, אין לי נכדות ואין לי כלה.
So after I saw the movies about the terrorists get inside the kibbutz and slaughtering and rape and killing children, families, even dogs, he suddenly thought that he doesn't have any family. His son is probably died, his wife died, and his granddaughter is also not alive. And he recognized it.
So Dani, share how Hamas terrorists actually took the keys of your son Omri and drove him with another man to Gaza in his own car, and how all of this was also being live streamed on social media, which is beyond horrific.
זאת אומרת, אני שאלתי את לישי והיא סיפרה לי את הסיפור.
אז אני רק אגיד לו. He asked, so the story he knows from his daughter-in-law, Lishai, that told him the story after, and now he will tell us.
והיא סיפרה לי שבשעה 11 הגיעו אליהם הביתה 5 מחבלים עם נער בגיל 17, תומר, שלקחו אותו מההורים, כולו מבוהל. אמר לו עומרי, פתח את הדלת בבקשה, אם לא תפתח את הדלת, הם יהרגו אותי.
So in 11 o'clock, the Hamas terrorist, went to his house, knocked the door, and took Tomer, a 17-year-old guy that weapon is in his head, and Tomer told Omri, please open the door, and if you don't open, they will murder me. And Omri opened the door.
ולקחו את כל המשפחה לבית של צחי.
And they took all the family to the neighbor's family, Tzachi, just house next door.
בבית של צחי, הילדה בת ה-18 ירו בה, הייתה ירויה, שוכבת על הרצפה, מתה, שותתת דם, וההורים ישבו בפינה, במטבח, עם עוד 2 ילדים. שם הושיבו גם את לישי ועומרי עם הבנות.
So, in the kitchen of the neighbor's house, Tzachi, Dan's family, so his daughter Mayan was killed and shot, and his wife and his other children, 2 children, were sitting in the kitchen, and they also put Omri, Lishai, and the 2 daughters on the floor in the kitchen. The Hamas terrorists.
וככה הם החזיקו אותם מאוימים בנשק במשך 2.5 שעות. הגברים היו עם תחתוני בוקסר וטישרט יחפים, והנשים היו בגדי לילה ויחפות.
So they kept them like almost 2 hours and more, and the guys were with their boxer shorts and t-shirt without any shoes, and the women were with their pajama from the morning also without any shoes. And
so, Dani, also showed us how it wasn't until later in the day that your daughter-in-law and your 2 grandchildren were actually rescued by the Israeli Defense Force.
רק בשעה 6, אחרי שלקחו את 2 הגברים, רק בשעה 6 הגיע הצבא לשם, והם ישבו בבית, לא זזו, אחרי שלקחו את הגברים, ופינו אותם לקיבוץ כרמים.
So, after they took the men to Gaza, only in 6 p.m. they rescue Lishai and the daughter and the other family, and took Lishai and the daughters to another kibbutz, kibbutz Kramim, as refugees in their own country.
זה להיות יום שלם, מעל 12 שעות, מאוים על ידי מחבלים עם נשק. ללא אוכל, אי אפשר להשתיק את הילדות, וזה מה שהם עברו.
It was 12 hours of the most traumatic and tragic day, without any food, without to be quiet with the babies. It was very, very hard.
And Dani, What was your response when you saw back in April of last year, 2024, when Hamas actually released that video of your son? What were your thoughts when you saw your son in the state that he was in?
באפריל של עומרי.
מבחינתי, כשראיתי את עומרי עם הזקן, חיוור, עיניים נפולות, בשבילי בהתרגשות הייתה כמו לידה מחדש. נולד לי ילד מחדש. הייתה לי שמחה אדירה.
So when I saw the video with Omri in the beard and very pale, it was a very big joy and happiness because it's like a rebirth, Omri rebirth, and it was I was very, very happy.
And Dani, share with us how you've been campaigning together with the Hostage Family Forum for the release of Omri and the rest of the hostages, and how you've grown your beard as a symbolic gesture to say that you are not shaving until your son Omri comes safely home.
אני כבר ב8 לחודש הבנתי שלקחו את עומרי ללא כלי גילוח, ללא כלי רחצה. ואז אמרתי, אני לפחות אזדהה איתו בדבר אחד. אני גדל זקן, וכשהוא יגיע, אנחנו שנינו נגלח את הזקנים, וביום הזה אני אבכה, אבל זה יהיה דמעות של אושר.
So in the 8th of October, when I understand that my son was kidnapped and been hostage without any toilets and tools and nothing, I decided I will grow my beard and I will only cut it when my son will come back and we will do it together and I will cry tears of joy with him.
מזה 15 חודשים אני לא בבית, אני חי בבית מלון בתל אביב ונמצא במטה ועושה פעילות, כמו שסיפרתי לך קודם, עם ילדים בעיקר, עם קבוצות, עם מפעלים, עם חברות הייטק. הייתי כמעט בכל העולם ופגשתי נשיאים, פגשתי את האפיפיור, הייתי בבית הדין בהאג, כך שאני עושה את המקסימום להביא את דבר החטיפה ואת מה שקרה באותו יום לאנשים.
So from the 7th of October, I'm not living at my village up north and I live in a hotel in Tel Aviv. And I'm doing a lot of explanation, as I told you before, for children and for factories, for high-tech companies. I was been all around the world in Hague, in wherever I can speak out loud the story of the hostages, the story of the forum, and the story of my son Omri. I'm doing it and just to say it out loud.
Dani, I just want to thank you so much for being here today on Revelation TV to tell your story and to tell also Omri's story as well. But there's not a day that doesn't go past where the Christian community that love Israel and the Jewish people are not praying for the hostages. And now that we know about Omri's story, we are going to pray so much harder. We are not going to remain silent, but we will continue to pray and we are continue to put pressure on our government and on the media so that your son Omri can come home to you and to his beautiful family as well, and that you can be reunited again.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And please, let's continue to keep the hostages in our prayers and in our thoughts. Let's not be silent regarding their plight, but let's let our members of parliament know that they should be putting pressure on the Qatari government to actually see their release. Joe, this is a very emotional issue, isn't it? Because sadly for any of us here in the UK, we can't really contemplate what those Israelis families are going through, what the hostages are going through, because we've never experienced anything like this. But share with us the kind of emotional impact that this is having on the Jewish community, that the hostages are still being held by Hamas in the most appalling treatment, torture, deprivation of food and sleep, even in some allocations, kind of rape and sexual assault.
Yeah. I think that, you've just said it, Simon, the brutality and the unknown, I think is what's the most scary thing. I mean, I've had I'd say pleasure, it is a pleasure to meet Dani myself and to hear about Omri. I know you've just shown the clip from your interview before, but to actually meet him and look at him as a father, a mother myself, I don't know how we can put one foot in front of the other, not knowing the fate of his son. And we pray every day that Omri and the rest of the hostages are released. But the truth is, it's very unknown what their state is. And I think the way that Hamas went about October the 7th and the brutality, it wasn't killing, it was murder. And it was done in such a way that everybody's eyes have been opened now to what can actually be, what they did and what their intention was that day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you work very closely, MDA UK, with the Red Cross. Share with us your thoughts on the Red Cross, because surely in this situation, because Israel has gone out of its way to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza, and yet this hasn't really been reciprocated in actually bringing the Red Cross to actually look at the plight of how well the hostages are doing and to ensure that they are meeting the standards that the Red Cross has set.
Yep. What a question. The International Red Cross, the ICRC, which is here only for times of armed conflict and upholds international humanitarian law and the Geneva Convention, are the people that should be going in, having access to the hostages, just as Israel grants them access to Palestinian prisoners. So there is no doubt they should be doing it. So I went to Geneva to lobby their president, who is ex-UNRWA, I hasten to add, and the executive director, who is also ex-UNRWA, and to say, what are you doing? Why are you not, at the very, very least, calling for the immediate release of the hostages, which is a war crime in itself to hold innocent people? Now, their response, in fairness, is we are dealing with, on the one hand, a sovereign nation, Israel, and on the other hand, a terrorist organization, Hamas. And we can't just go banging on the gates of Gaza. We can't just demand access. We do demand access and we're ignored or told no. And on the one hand, I get it, I get that. But equally, they need to do so much more. This is a war crime against individuals. There's a baby being held who hasn't even seen his first birthday in Israel. And yet the Red Cross is doing very little that we hear about. Now, I must say that we have an excellent relationship with the British Red Cross, and we constantly meet with them and talk with them, and they try and ensure that the communication from the ICRC is calling for the release of the hostages. And it's improved, and there's no doubt it's improved, but there's a long way to go. And the Jewish community, I understand why it feels so hurt and slighted and ignored, and people having references to what happened 80 years ago when they turned their back then on the Jewish community. But it's a very, very complicated matter.
No, I can imagine. And surely one of the answers is to place as much diplomatic pressure on Qatar as possible. But what do you make of what the incoming President Trump has said only this week, in which he has called for the immediate return of the hostages and said if the hostages are not released before his inauguration as America's 47th president on, is it Monday, the 20th of January, all hellfire will break loose in the Middle East?
Yeah. Again, I think there will be movement. I think there has to be movement. We know that Trump will do anything. Nothing seems to stop him. You know, this is the guy that managed to speak to Kim Jong-un and North Korea. So if he can do that, I have no doubt that he will put the pressure on the Qataris to do something. We hope and pray that there are 100 hostages released immediately.
Amen to that. And Joe, on to another topic. I've been hosting Daniel and others from MDA UK for years, including Israeli paramedics as well. So it's an absolute pleasure. But share with us that deep relationship that MDA UK has built up with the Christian Friends of Magen David Adom, called Christian Friends of Magen David Adom UK, and the importance of Christian supporters who who raise money and awareness of the excellent work that this organisation is doing to save lives in Israel?
So, being new to Magen David Adom, I wasn't aware of this, and I don't mean to be ignorant, but I really wasn't aware of the support that Christian Friends give MDA, and actually coming on board and being community fundraiser and having the exposure to speak to the different communities around the country of Christian Friends of Magen David Adom and meeting them at the gala dinner, and it has just been incredible. And hearing the fact that they've raised money for ambulances and bomb shelters and continue to do events and fundraising and are so passionate. I mean, the passion. So I'm very excited as part of my role to go out there in the community and meet as many Christian Friends of MDA as I can. And we are just so thankful because, you know, at the end of the day, we want to raise as much money as we can. That's what we're here for. And we are just thankful for anybody that can help us.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
And share with us the journey that you've been on, because it was probably quite a challenge, and I can imagine you're bored thinking like, Dani, what are you doing here, bringing on the Christian Friends of Magen David Adom, which is now an integral part of your organisation. Just share with us the relationship that you have with the Christian Friends of Magen David Adom, and you know, Barbara Dingle is one wonderful woman.
She's amazing, and I'm proud to have her as a friend and also a trustee of Magen David Adom. And I'm sure I've told you this story before, but when I started here, way back when, I've lost count now, when it gets into double-digit years, I give up counting. And my predecessor, Ellie, was ill. I was about a week into the job, and Ellie had said to me, do me a favour, go up to Liverpool to Alan Chester's church at Kingsway. They're having an event there. He couldn't speak, he'd lost his voice, and asked me to go. So I went up there knowing that it was a Christian Friends thing, and just like Joe saying, hadn't appreciated the love and the support until I walk into this church hall full of both the Christian and Jewish community. So a true interfaith love fest for Magen David Adom in the UK. And yeah, that was my sort of baptism by fire, to coin the pun, of MDA and its Christian support. And it fills me with immense warmth and pride that we have so many friends who really, truly love us.
Wonderful. Would you outlay the kind of vision and the outlook for Magen David Adom UK for 2025?
Well, one of the reasons we brought Joe to the table was to continue to grow our community presence. We're very good at working with our high net worths, and we've established our young professionals and clearly our Christian friends. But what we need to do more of is get around the country, talk to grassroots, go to communities, go to schools, go to synagogues. And so I'm delighted that whilst Dani is over, he's going and speaking to a couple of synagogues with us as well. And Joe's been amazing at getting out there to these communities already. And so this is a big part of what we want to do. And of course the challenge, and this is where it becomes really interesting, is fortunately for all the wrong reasons, we saw our income in 2023 quadruple, and our donor base also quadrupled. And that's at all levels, from people giving at appeals right the way through to foundations and companies donating 6 and even 7-figure donations. But how does one keep up that momentum? How does one keep the relationship going? We don't want these to be one-hit wonders and disappear off our donor base. So a big part of what we're doing this year is continuing to engage with these donors and ensure that we take that opportunity not to lose them.
Absolutely. And Joe, what it's like to be out of the office then and go to different parts of the UK and to meet other Jewish communities, smaller Jewish communities outside of North London, of course, and to tell them about the amazing work that MDA UK is doing in helping to save lives in Israel?
It's been wonderful, and I'm looking forward to 2025 where I can get out as much as I can and go to as many small communities and really sort of spread the love about what we do. And I don't need to, we're not a big sell, you know, everyone knows what we do, and if they don't, they are aware in some capacity of MDA. And I'm just going to try and get out to as many people as I can, as Daniel said, grassroots, from the bar mitzvah boy raising money, doing a charity event, small event, to the big community in the south of England doing a huge dinner. This is my job now, and I'm going to be hopefully attending as many of these events as possible and growing as I said, spreading the love.
And what are the needs of MDA? We've got 2 minutes left. I've got 2 quick questions for you. What is the need for MDA in Israel right now, particularly knowing that Israel's still at war? And is there a massive need now for bulletproof ambulances?
There's always a need for bulletproof ambulances, and the problem is a bulletproof ambulance costs 4 times the price of a regular ambulance. But there's also the need for the nuts and bolts, for the everyday. MDA is running at a deficit. Every day it runs at operational capacity, 100% operational capacity as it is now. That's an additional £1 million shekels a day, every single day, and that's to keep the people on the ground working all day long. And so our support is absolutely needed. So the support of the community is what we need to further support MDA.
Would you, within 30 seconds, address our viewers to tell how vital their support is in 2025?
Thank you. So your support makes a difference. The beauty of our organisation and your support of that organisation is that every single pound donated directly affects saving lives in Israel. It buys equipment and you make that difference. So please continue to support the vital life-saving work. And by doing that, you are sharing your love for the people of Israel.
So Daniel and Joe, thank you so much for being my guests on this week's Middle East Report. Both done a great job. Thank you. And I want to thank you for watching this programme at home. This is an incredible organisation, Magen David Adom UK, that helps save lives in Israel, where we have Israelis, we have Israeli Muslims serving with MDA, we have Christians serving with MDA, and this is a wonderful practical way of showing your love and support to Israel during this very difficult time. And that's why it's so important that we can all get behind the incredible work being done by Magen David Adom. And we leave you with this wonderful video produced by MDA that looks at all their achievements over 2024 of how they've helped save lives. So shalom and God bless from us.